One of the biggest questions we get asked. Actually, before that, people ask, did the kids come with you? When we talk about travelling the world. But the biggest questions we get asked is, what did we do about
We stumbled across this phrase, Worldschooling.
learning? We realised is everywhere. What if it took our kids longer, but they knew who they were, they liked who they were, they knew what they wanted to do? It was a really cool experience to entrust them that they were capable and could do this. What if thriving wasn't about getting life perfect?
But learning to find peace and purpose right in the mess.
I'm Kelsey.
And I'm Tom, and we walked away from the version of life that looked right to build one that feels alive.
We'll talk about the beauty and the struggle, from parenting and marriage to faith, wellbeing and travel.
This is the whole of us.
This is probably one of the biggest questions we get asked.
All the time.
And actually, before that, people ask, did the kids come with you? When we talk about travelling the world.
Well, yeah, it's that kind of look of slight disbelief of...
And did you take kids and travel with them? Yeah. But the biggest question, well, one of the biggest questions we get asked is, what did we do about schooling while we were travelling? And we thought we'd talk about this today because it has been quite the journey for us.
It's been wild. I think coming from a very traditional background of 12 years of school, and then we both went to university, and then we get the professional jobs, and then we bought the business, and you go through all the nice steps of kind of what you perceive as
the way to do it.
The way to do it.
Yeah.
And there's so much beauty in that structure and form. And then we threw it all out. And look, I think we'd done this on a bigger scale with what we were doing in life. Like, we'd sold our business and needing some time doing different. And
well, I don't think we went in with the intention of pursuing this direction for so long.
No.
The initial thought was almost like, we'll just take a term off school.
Yeah.
And we'll just read books and the girls
We'll
can keep a journal.
It's
like 3 years
radically changed our family. So when we first considered this idea of homeschooling, we didn't quite know what we were getting ourselves into. I think our initial thoughts was, we just need to replicate school, but we won't have a school, so we'll need to be the teachers. And then you start talking about homeschooling, and there is plenty of opinions out there. There's all sorts of thoughts and feelings. And to be honest, we had our own hang-ups about it, having done only normal school for our whole lives. Yeah,
it's really interesting. It nearly broke us thinking that we had to replicate school.
Yeah.
The first month, so I think part of the thing is that we didn't anticipate that we would be travelling so long. So we hadn't really thought through a long-term plan. We were just like, we'll just take a turn off and travel, and then it'll be great. We'll come back and put them back in school. I think you had been exposed a lot more to the success of homeschooling kids in your line of work and different modalities of education and how people could learn and grow and succeed in life through a different pathway that looked less traditional. We were in Thailand for like 6 weeks.
Yep.
It was like pulling teeth.
We ended up in tears most days.
Well,
both kids and us.
Just the fear of your kid falling behind. There is suddenly no one to compare your child to.
Yeah.
There is no way to know, at least when you first start, whether they're ticking all the milestones. And you're just so worried that you want to do the best for your kid. And you want the best outcomes for them and the best future for them. And so we know that education is part of that.
Yeah.
So our adult fears were probably the biggest thing. And as we tried to replicate a school system of very traditional, we're going to sit down and it's going to be your maths and then your English. We had journals for them that they had to fill out every day. And it wasn't a fun thing. It was this is how you learn to read and write. You could feel our desperation and urgency in our teaching.
Yeah. And there was no fun in that for the kids. And at the time, they were 6 and 8. And so a 6 and an 8-year-old, their level of engagement so much comes from their ability to actually just be free and have fun with it.
And we are for school.
The reality that kids without an opportunity to do anything else can get a decent education through a system which is not without its flaws, but is on the whole doing as good a job as any, with teachers that are doing a phenomenal job with the resources and the loads that they have.
We have learned that there's pros and cons for homeschooling and schooling, and we're not opposed to sending the kids back to school. For our family, this is our story and this is what's working. But I think we notice we have very good kids, which it's like, well done us, but also they are
They're
anxious kids
genuinely-
too, because they can be very good. They take after their mother of being
Yeah.
like the perfect school kid, wanting all the external validation. And we watched, it was really interesting watching one of the girls start school, and almost like their light went out a little bit.
Their
She would
sparkle.
sit there like, look at me, I'm doing the right thing. I'm sitting so straight. And, you know, some other child would get who probably needed a little bit more encouragement, would get the award. And I can't imagine one teacher to the amount of students in a class. And it makes sense why there's all these structures and things like that. But we watched her spark leave her.
Fizzle.
That was in the back of our mind starting this. And we saw this in the way that they started learning. Because there was no more big external validation, student of the week, or like the ticks and the stickers and all they used to get these points on a computer. And so you would hear this big ding every time you just sat the right way. And the kids would get, you know, I've got a certain number of points, that then they get a prize, and all of that left. And one of the girls' biggest hang-ups or challenges we had to overcome was they just kept saying, I don't want to get it wrong. So they weren't even trying.
Because they already were defeated.
Yeah, like with the spelling or the writing, it was this, I don't want to get it wrong, I don't want to get it wrong. And when, you know, of course she didn't say that at the time, it was just, I don't want to do it, and couldn't think of the answer and would literally freeze. And it wasn't until, you know, time and time again, we've had these examples that we actually sat with her and she was afraid to get anything wrong. She just wanted it all to be perfect.
Yeah.
And she wasn't perfect because she's learning, and we're not
She's
supposed to
human.
be perfect.
Yeah.
So that really started cement in me that we were actually doing a really good thing for our kids, taking them out of school. And it was sort of an incidental happening. But as we started to compare the two, we really enjoyed watching our kids come alive in different ways.
So after those first few weeks in Thailand where we were attempting to replicate school at home or on the road, we started doing some more research into what it looked like to transition kids from traditional school into a homeschool environment. And there was a lot written about this concept of unschooling. And effectively, what it's talking about is releasing a lot of those expectations that you were just talking about, like the expectation to get it right, the expectation to be doing something, the structure around it, and just go, actually, as kids, we're wired to learn. Kids are sponges. They want to soak up everything. But when we force them to, or put rigid barriers or guidelines on
And
what
punish them
they
for
can,
it and then reward them for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Suddenly it loses all of the interest and fun. And so I think we struggled to engage the girls with a lot of things in that first few weeks and a couple of months, to be honest.
Yeah, easily.
Even though we were in these incredible places, doing these amazing things, seeing these ancient temples and seeing these wildly different cultures, seeing wildlife that was just unbelievable. But as soon as we started to ask questions about it, they would shut down. Like they didn't want to know more. They didn't want to learn more. They weren't curious. And again, I think there was so many fears there. And so as we...
what then we decided...
we're just going to leave it all. We're just going to do nothing for a while.
Yeah.
And again, like when you start looking at...
When we say nothing, we still were reading. We were trying to keep a journal, but it was like low stakes and more of like, let's write a picture about
Let's draw some
today.
pictures,
And we were exposing them to a lot of different things.
But when we took all the pressure off trying to do a curriculum or trying to do set learning, it took a while, like a good few weeks, even a month. But
Yeah, I reckon it took probably 2 months.
Yeah. But there was one day where our oldest looked at us and was like, oh, hey, you know that thing? Can you tell me more about it? And then we were at this place the other day and that was this and there was this thing as well. And suddenly there was these questions and this curiosity that started to emerge from her. And it was like, your brain's turned back on again. Like you're actually...
Yeah, it was unbelievable.
We don't have to force you.
She just started asking, they both did, asking questions. How does that work? Why does that work? Where did that come from? Like
Who is
every
this
parent's
person?
worst nightmare of 1,000 questions, but it was finally this desire and curiosity to learn. And it was just happening.
Yeah, it was fun. And so once we started doing more research into homeschooling and then unschooling, we stumbled across this phrase, worldschooling. And that kind of was like, oh, that's what we're doing.
That's what we're doing.
That's what we're doing. Worldschooling, if you don't know, is the concept of learning in the world and using the world as your classroom. There's so many different ways to do this. There's so many different concepts and theories around it, almost as many as there is around normal homeschool or normal
different tracks.
Schooling. Just different tracks. Yeah. But the beauty of it is that when you're immersing yourself in new environments, you can't help but get curious.
Yes.
And for the kids, it provoked so many beautiful conversations. And so, like, if you go back to a traditional model of school and go, oh, well, we need to do geography. Well, today it was exploring a national park and learning about how this canyon was formed. Or today we need to do history. And so you go and explore the pyramids. And you get a guide who actually understands this place and can immerse the kids and us, to be honest, in this incredible, incredible place. And then you go, oh, well, we need to do science. And you go find a science museum somewhere. Or there was endless opportunity for learning and for growth.
And for context, like the Worldschooling thing I think is taking off. We had never heard of it before we started, but now I see groups everywhere. But there's, as Tom's saying, there's lots of different ways to do it. But one of the ways people all around the world are doing it are they're meeting up in hubs. Yeah. And they're having different hubs. Look, it's an unregistered thing, so you have to really do your research and make sure it's what your family wants and needs. But there are different organised hubs around the world. For us, we wanted more of... we didn't really want to join a hub because we wanted to experience the world with our kids. Yeah. So our learning probably looked a lot different to the hubs, which have often a facilitator or a teacher. Again, you just have to do some Googling. There's heaps of different ways people are doing it. But, they might go for 6 weeks, or sometimes there's a travelling hub. They might employ a teacher with 6 families, and then they bounce around so that, when the parents are working, often we're all doing online work. The kids can be, supported by somebody. We didn't do any organised formal hubs, but we did do one in the Siwa Oasis in Egypt. It's on 50 k's from the Libyan border in a
middle of the Sahara Desert. It's so isolated. You've got to catch a bus through the Sahara for 12 hours to get there.
It's not even through because of all the...
military checkpoints.
Yeah, you can't go through. It's a whole thing. But it was so weird how we had a lot of peace on doing that. So we were staying around in Europe at the time to do this hub or this sort of meet-up in the Siwa Oasis, and it was phenomenal because it was drawing in children from all over the world. Actually, there was probably only 3 families. There's one family that lived there, full-time. They leave in summer and they do their own travel, and then they come back. They host Worldschooling and health retreats and things like that. If you want to know more, message us because it was just mind-blowing. We all got together as families and decided how much time a day or how many times a week we wanted to gather together. Sometimes we'd each go, or one of us would go. Sometimes it would just be the kids. They learned to do traditional pottery on a wheel. They did street artwork in the village. They went horseback riding through the Sahara. They were looking for shells in the Great Sand Desert, which had like these really fossilized. It's a desert, fossilized coral. They learned how to traditionally cook Amazi food, the tribal food in the area. So many opportunities to learn. That's the type of experiences kids can have in these places, of meeting local people, of understanding culture, understanding history. Learning, we realised, is everywhere. Yeah,
it's not a textbook. It's not a set curriculum necessarily. Though those are helpful tools. It's, I guess, and it's an interesting one. I can see the comparisons with almost healthcare, where we've separated out the human and gone, okay, well, this part of health is this person's job and this part of health is this person's job. And you lose sight of the person in the middle of this who's actually holding all of these pieces together. And it's the same, I feel like, with education. Like we've got all these specialised little areas that we jump into.
Do you mean like history and science?
History and science and maths and English, rather than going, oh, you're a person. Let's do all of this together. And it doesn't mean that we won't go and do some specialised knowledge here or some specialised knowledge there.
Because you want experts to come in and speak into that.
Absolutely. But it's like, how do we draw it all together? And so instead of sitting you down, let's live somewhere. Let's do life as a community.
It's an immersion experience.
It's an immersion. And all of those things. So like you're doing languages, you're communicating with someone about money, which is your mathematics for the day, and then you're having to write something down, which is your English, and then you're learning about history, and then journaling, and then all of these things, which is, it's tricky to wrap your head around initially. Yes. And then once you start settling into a groove with it and release a lot of the formal structure around it, we found that it just continues to become more and more fun.
It's not even releasing formal structure, it's just releasing your own fears around it.
Yeah.
And I still, to this day, we'll get into that again later, but like I think as parents, you often wonder, am I doing the best for my child? We don't have a crystal ball to like look at the end and be, oh yeah, they make it, whatever that means. There was this concept that I really liked that we were speaking to, because the other amazing thing about Worldschooling is that you're meeting people from all different places, living life a little differently, and some are further along in the journey, some are just started, but there were so many people whose children had grown up to be incredible and they were loving their life. And this sort of concept with one of the people we met, he was talking to us about what if it took our kids a couple of years longer to learn or to make it, to graduate the schooling program, but they knew who they were, they liked who they were, they knew what they wanted to do. And I think that really took it into perspective of the agenda we have for our kids, that everyone has to go at the same pace. You go from grade level to grade level, despite where you might be at. It just sort of peeled it back a little bit to see it a little bit differently and to allow our kids to go at a pace that was still pushing them, because we want resilient kids. We want kids who do hard things. We want them to constantly be growing and being challenged. But it wasn't just missing things to graduate a level. It was making sure there was a real fleshed out experience.
In terms of a structure to what we were trying to do, we, as we said, dropped everything in those early days. And then as we kept going, we were picking up more of these like intentional experiences where we'd go, okay, we're going to be in this city, so what can we do to like learn about this place, this people, this culture, this history? And then as we went along further, we went, actually, it'd be good to get the girls doing a little bit more structured writing, and not being teachers ourselves, having something that can help us teach them as well is a really useful thing. And so we picked up a curriculum that was from the US based, that it was an open and shut thing that we could do with them in an hour or two a day. And we didn't do it every day, but we have used that as a nice kind of grounding.
Well, while we were traveling, there was rhythms. And if you've ever done any sort of long-term travel, you realise that you cannot go at the pace you would normally do on a 2-week or 1-month trip.
Yeah.
You will burn out from it. So we would have a month, say, in Turkey. We were in a little town, a non-English speaking area, Dacia, in Turkey, on the turquoise coast.
Yeah.
And we spent a month there. And so we were able to really slow down and get into a rhythm. And then say we'd go to Istanbul, the capital, or not the capital, but like a bigger city, and there's a lot to see and do. Your learning is less in a workbook, it's suddenly you're living it, or it's a long travel day. We had to really blend learning and education with nervous systems, our bodies and what we needed, and what the health of our family needed.
Yeah.
So there was this flexibility that would shift and change. So on the days that we weren't traveling and we were in one location, we did have this maths and English literature workbooks that the girls would work through. It was a couple hours a day. Plus they had a lot of different online programs, learning a different language or
at different times.
Lots of things. And then we tried to keep a journal, and every day, regardless of where we were, there was reading involved. So that was the main framework of what we did. We also, depending on which country we're in and what activities were available, so in Turkey, the girls did tennis. In the UK, they did some art classes.
And gymnastics.
While we're in the US, we were picking up different ways to socialize, to get out and about. I think one of the things I'm most proud of with the girls is watching how their confidence is growing, their ability to ask questions in a different language. We were in, was it Italy? And
Italy, Spain, Turkey, they just go and have conversations.
and I'm just, adult me was like, please don't talk to that person because they won't know what you're saying. But they just would pick up a few little words, and she was trying to tell this girl that we were on the side of on a beach town near an ocean, and we were jumping in off the rocks, and she was trying to tell this girl to go down to a different spot to jump in. It's easier for her. This 30-year-old girl. And so she's goes over and says hello and points and says a couple of words she knew in Italian. But I was so proud of that because she was giving it a go. We would watch our kids go in, and they would have to go inside and ask or pay for something. So they'd have different currency, and they would have to use the local language and go and find something. I mean, we would just be there standing outside, but we'd be like, yeah, you go grab that, or order us a coffee in Arabic. It was a really cool experience to entrust them that they were capable and could do this.
Yeah, well, and they were humans just interacting with humans. I think kids are so often pushed to the side, or just kind of you communicate with the adults rather than with the kids. And so
there's take up space, kids.
Yeah,
you're welcome
exactly.
here. That was the other incredible thing, as we're teaching our kids about the world while we're traveling the world, different cultures, and how they welcome children. It is so, I hate to say it, but it's different in the West. We were gobsmacked by how our society really treats children.
Well, look, we did go from extremes. We were in this tribal village in the middle of Egypt, and beautiful multi-generational family living. They're living.
Before that, we'd been in Greece, and then in Italy, which is all community.
All of these community livings
in general.
And then we got on a American cruise ship to America, and it was pretty rough.
I heard someone say, I can't believe there's kids on this thing. We booked this thing outside of kids' holidays so that there are no children on this boat. And I was like, have you here as kids? We just come from Greece, where this you call him Nonna, who was living next door, couldn't speak a drop of English. We couldn't speak much Greek.
She was just cuddling the girls every
day,
the sloppiest kisses.
It's like, wow. But so delightful, and not worried by the noise they made. And our kids are super respectful.
Yes.
But I was just blown away. And I immediately realised how much anxiety I have carried as a mother when you go out into community, because you don't want your kids to make a noise or get in trouble or be too loud or, be disruptive. In other cultures throughout the world, it's not even a thing.
Kids are just embraced.
It's the concept of, we were talking to our friend who was pregnant with twins, and in Europe, or in the Western world, they were like, oh, double trouble. She gets on this plane to Africa, double blessing. Yeah. And I'm like, yes, that is the difference.
Yeah, children are an incredible blessing and an incredible privilege to steward their lives. And we were reflecting on just the different countries we've been to recently, and I sat there with tears in my eyes, just in awe of the incredible opportunity that these girls have had to experience the world and the people in it, and the way that they've shown up in all of their humanness, but just embracing every aspect of it.
I think they've learnt the world is actually really good and really kind,
and people are genuinely really good and kind for the most part. There's enough experiences they've had, but it's opened the door to connection.
Yes.
Regardless of age. And I was thinking, you're talking with them, just having conversations with adults. It was even going to playgrounds, and you go to a playground and you don't have kids just your age, in a school playground where you play with the kids from your year group. And it's no, you play with the kids who are 3, 4, 5 years either side of your age, because that's who's there, and you make the games work.
There's a misconception that homeschool kids are socially inept. And look, I once believed that. It's I don't know what it was like back when we were kids, but that was sort of the consensus we all had. And I'm so sorry if you were homeschooled and you felt that way from people who were at school.
Who didn't understand.
Who just didn't understand and didn't get curious. I don't think it's like that. Homeschooling is on the rise globally, particularly obviously in Western nations.
The numbers of significant.
In Australia, I don't know what the stat is. I think it's like a 700% increase. I saw a stat the other day. I don't know how reliable that is, but for sure people are looking at different options. The introduction of iPhones and social media and bullying and body image issues. I thought it was hard when we were kids, and so I can't imagine having technology at your fingertips and seeing things, you know, regardless of whether you own a phone or not, other children can show you things. It's quite terrifying. And look, we've obviously been very privileged in the way we've been able to travel, and it is not lost on us. It's super encouraging, the families we've met around the world, though, seeing all different budgets and ways that they're doing it.
And there are people with ludicrous amounts of money, and there are people with nothing, making it work.
They're doing workaways, they're doing house sits around the world. I think that's a way bigger conversation of like the affordability of long-term travel and how people are doing it. I think socialization in travel as well is an interesting thing because you don't have the grounded community like you do when you have a home base.
It's very transient.
Yes, and I think there is a truth that children particularly do need a base, like they need consistency and stability for their nervous systems, if nothing else. I think we all need that. So I think I mentioned why Worldschooling is so beautiful, because there are hubs and people you meet around the world, and you do find that community. For us as a family, we knew that we needed to come back and base ourselves somewhere, and then if we choose to travel, we can travel from here. But the lie that children can't be socialised because they're not in traditional schooling is wildly believed. It's one of the first, once people know or understand that we're homeschooling now, they'll be like, oh, well, what about the socialisation of the kids? And I'm thinking, they went to the shop today and they did the food, they got the coffees we needed, they are playing with children after they get home from school. There's extracurricular activities, but in terms of the Worldschooling, they are interacting with multiple generations. I think it's really exciting.
It is. And I think the other big question that we got asked, and it's kind of hilarious because our girls are currently 9 and 11, so they're years off this, but it's like, but what about university? It's this kind of like cover-all question of, well, you have to do that because you have to do that.
Like, that's the only way to get into uni.
And it's just an outright lie.
But, you know, it's because it's not as clear. It's not like you finish grade 12, you have your QCS, or what do they have these days?
Well, there's all sorts of things around
different
the world.
testing, and then you can enter uni. By and by, every person we spoke to who was doing this, whose child had graduated, often they graduated earlier.
Yeah.
And they were doing some sort of either tertiary education, or it was a course in what they wanted to do the thing that they actually wanted to do.
Yeah.
So it didn't seem to put them behind. It actually did the opposite.
Yeah. And then people that we've spoken to who were in their like early 20s, having been homeschooled and world-schooled, profound,
incredible
just
people,
beautiful people.
Yeah.
And look, again, this is, I think the caution that there is around a lot of the regulation with homeschooling is the side of parents not being engaged with it, and it's that's a really challenging one.
There are many
kids do miss out in that situation.
Yeah, I think it's a very broad topic, and it's a little dicey jumping into it, but we just wanted to share our own experience in that it might be hopeful and exciting if this is something you were looking at doing. I think at the moment, so we spent 2 and a bit years traveling, have come home, and as a family decided we would continue homeschooling. Our big priority in coming home was regulating everyone's nervous system, settling back in, just adjusting. And we are continuing to do the math and English, and they have extracurricular activities, and they do science, all through this Good and the Beautiful program out of the US. Next year, we're going to sit and have a look at different options, ways we can bring more opportunities. I think the way I'm landing on this, because it is hard, like while we were traveling, I would work and you would spend a couple of hours with them. You also, it doesn't take a full day because it's just you and one other, or, you know, the 2 kids. So it's heaps quicker. And then they can go and do free play and swim, and they go to the beach and they, you know, do all these things. But I just, even to this day, you just fear what they're missing out on, even though, you know, our kids have had incredible opportunities, I think there's a pro and con either way you do this.
Yeah, there's no perfect.
So it's
got to work for your family.
We also have learned that there is a secret option C in everything. So
Yeah.
if that was something you really wanted to do, then perhaps there would be a different career option or a sacrifice in this area. There's cost to everything. It's just,
What compromise are you willing to take?
yes.
I don't know what it's going to look like over the coming kind of 10 years before they're out of home, which is kind of crazy to say, because they'll be, 18 and 20 at that point, and who knows where they're going to be in the world.
Where we will be.
They've already been planning trips in a van somewhere.
It'd be so cute. They want to like paint it green. I've realised that with everything in life, or a lot of things in life, I think there is so much fear that we will do damage that we can never repair. Say in 2 years' time, one of the girls is not as far along in English as they needed to be. We could pay for like a one-on-one tutor and progress there. We've been also looking at the concept of focusing on the thing your child most needs improvement on, rather than focusing on the thing your child is excelling in and thriving and loving in. It's like the child who struggles in maths but is brilliant at tennis, and so we get a maths tutor instead of a tennis coach. Just shifting some of our thoughts around all of it.
Yeah, yeah. And being so open to change and rebalancing where it's at.
I've really had to let go of what my idea was of a perfect schooling experience. And it's really tricky because we're not teachers. So
No.
we're going off the research we've done, and, you know, we're...
Our own backgrounds and being curious and inquisitive individuals.
And we are doing a type of formal education at the moment with the
curriculum
that we've chosen. So that's great. And the kids are progressing. They're excelling. If it doesn't work, you know, we could send them back to school. It's just holding things a little lightly. It's hard balancing work and then the kids. But
Yeah.
I will say, as a family, it's almost like we all go to work. So in the morning, we have a beautiful routine at the moment and how we start our day. It's slower. One of my favourite things about homeschooling or worldschooling, well, I suppose worldschooling, you rush around a bit sometimes, but in homeschooling, you're not rushing out the door. You're not waking up, quickly everyone get your bags, get your lunch packed, jump in the car, and then when they get home, everyone's tired and you're rushing through dinner. The pace of how we're doing life is so much slower and way more regulated. There is not forcing us to push through. So I was just thinking today, one of our girls woke up struggling. She's doing a piano performance in a couple of weeks and she's
feeling a lot of emotion.
Just a lot of emotions, yeah. So it was not the time to jump into maths. We knew that we actually needed to deal with
her nervous system first.
So we went to the beach. We spent the whole morning surfing, swimming, hiking, moving, and then we sat down and they did all their lessons within
just over an hour.
Yeah, it was really, really quick. We could have forced them to do it like we would, when it's time, 9 o'clock, we're starting school now, and it just would not have worked. So I think it's also changed, it's being a little bit more flexible. I think travel's taught us to be a little bit more flexible.
A lot more flexible.
Yeah, the rigid thinking has definitely shifted.
Yeah. So if somebody was curious and they were hearing how we're talking about world schooling or even just about homeschooling and they wanted to make a move towards it, where would you start?
I would start with some great Facebook groups.
Yes.
There's an awesome Worldschooling Facebook. It's really interesting, even as I say, there is an awesome Worldschooling Facebook group and there's many, many great groups out there. But like anything, there are extremes in Worldschooling and in homeschooling and traditional. And I think we found it a little tricky at times to find our place in all these spaces.
Yeah.
So am I the best person to ask? I think I would just start doing some research and I would try things. I know many, many homeschooling families who've started a curriculum and it's just not working for them and they've just had to move. One of the best ways I think that we're doing life is involving our kids in life. Yeah. So it's working alongside each other. So yes, we all go to work and they do the schooling and I do my work. All working in the kitchen together. We're going to go for a hike together. What a great education doing life together with people that are with you every single day, and you're having to do conflict resolution in an environment that's super safe.
That safety of being in family as kids are testing things out, and they test all sorts of emotional boundaries with us and push us to the limits of ourself and our capacity to manage things, and we work it out.
It would probably require parents who are on a journey themselves, is what I would suggest, because I cannot imagine, and we'll talk about this in future episodes, we never left each other's side for 2 and a bit years. There wasn't a day one time you did a free diving course in Turkey. And I was like, oh my goodness, I've got to go to the market by myself and figure this out. In general, we were always together.
Yeah.
And we had different ways of coping with that, of, noise cancelling headphones and everyone's having a chill out moment and listen to some music or whatever. But it's incredibly safe, but it's also what do you call it? It's like a hot box or
an incubator.
No, just
greenhouse.
No. When
pressure
it's like,
cooker.
it's a pressure cooker.
Pressure cooker.
So you're constantly having to evaluate your own nervous system and that of your family and shift things accordingly.
So, okay.
So then it requires awareness.
So if we were to wind back to that question I asked, what would be one of the first steps you could take to move towards this space? And it sounds like it really is just, am I prepared to be confronted?
Well, yes, but I also think it's a curiosity.
Yeah, it's a curiosity.
And maybe asking some questions, why do you want to do that? What about the current version of education learning, or however you're living life, are you dissatisfied with?
Yeah.
And why? Because if it's a grass is greener situation, this is not going to work.
No,
I don't
it's
think
certainly not.
Homeschooling is easier than school. Again, there's just pros and cons to both. It's getting clear on your why.
Yeah.
Also, maybe lowering the stakes. We could try this, and if it's not working for our family, let's try something different. I would also think if you're considering Worldschooling, I have so much thoughts on this, but if you were considering Worldschooling, you would maybe try it out. Do 6 weeks instead of selling the house and leaving. I know lots of people do sell their house. I am so glad we did not do that.
Yes.
I think we would have felt untethered, and that's a whole nother conversation because it was also difficult just renting out our house as well. But anyway, long story.
And that's what we'd done as well, is we'd done a 6-week road trip just to see how does it go, us all being together for an extended period of time. Can we do that, number one, or do we implode? And then can that become a longer thing? If
you're Worldschooling, you're really learning to lean into discomfort and challenges because there's nobody else.
Yeah.
When it's all falling apart, sometimes it's not there's not even someone English speaking that you can ask. It is a constant overstimulation of different languages and cultures, and just trying to get internet is difficult, or find your way to your accommodation because the map's not working. It's a lot.
Yeah.
But often these wonderful good things comes at the cost of a lot. Of not in a negative cost, but it's because I'm is it sacrifice? I think there is a part of sacrifice, but in a beautiful way. I think we sacrifice the things we don't like about life to find the things that we do. I think it would teach you a lot about yourself, a lot about your children, a lot about your priorities. I was talking to a friend the other day who really wants to travel. I can see her pinging out of her brain on Skyscan, I'm getting out of here. I think a leaning slowly in is much kinder for everybody. I think older children, some of the hardest part is friends and what they'll do. So for us, we would Zoom home with friends. We even had friends meet us around the world, some of them. Or send letters, send pictures, that type of thing. We did have iPads for each girl. We sort of needed that for their schooling. We did take physical workbooks as well. That meant our luggage weighed a bit more, but that was the cost of traveling with children we preferred them to actually write in books and things like that. We had Kindle for reading. There are many, many options. So I would just start
with that curiosity and check in with yourself that you're not just running.
Yeah, we definitely met quite a few people who were just running, and for a very long time, which is exhausting for everybody.
Totally.
Having a clear idea. Well, and saying that, we didn't have a clear idea. We just trusted the next step.
Yep.
So maybe there's just an element of trust in it and believing in yourself.
Yep.
I think I've just realised that life really can be that wonderful and good. And we can push the envelope a bit, and we can ask questions, and we can get a little bit uncomfortable and still be okay. And your kids will be okay. Children are so resilient.
Yeah.
I would caveat that with parents who I think are doing the work and are safe.
Yeah.
Because if we had been pinging out of our systems, and if you've listened to any of the previous episodes, you'll know that we haven't been in a very good mental headspace.
Well, we haven't had it all together all the time.
No, like we started in crisis, basically.
Yeah.
And we didn't shield the kids from that, but we tempered it,
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah.
We invited them into a process that was age appropriate, but they didn't know the extent of it. But when you're
No.
living 24 hours
You can't
together,
hide.
you can't hide the lowness. I think it gave them a good sense of humanity. It gave them a really good understanding of emotions
Yep.
and articulating what was happening in their own bodies without it stopping you from living.
Yeah.
It was an ability to work through emotions. It's probably the best thing we've ever done. Unfortunately, it does create more questions in you.
Yes.
It's not like, because, you know, when you're talking about doing world schooling and transitioning back to real life, what does that even mean now?
Yeah. Yeah. And look, it's something that we're wrestling with, and we'll continue to wrestle with, but not in a, oh no, what have we done? But in a, oh, okay, that's interesting. It's interesting that we're feeling this now. Then we know that it's going to be okay.
If you have any questions about world schooling, send them in, because
We love this, and we're excited for the journeys that we have ahead with our girls.
yeah, and we are no experts in this. We're just sharing our experience, like we've said, but we have other resources. We've got an ebook that we created about how we started traveling, what practical steps we did, the emotional steps we've done as well, just answering a ton of questions with packing lists and a little bit about world schooling and how you
Yeah.
can find,
And
people
if you
along your
need to have a
journey.
conversation with someone, Kelsey's actually phenomenal. She's really good at sharing these conversations in a space that is just curious.
I think it's really a privilege to be able to sit with people and get curious about questions and hold space for it.
Yeah.
And you will be surprised at the healing that comes from that.
Yeah.
And what lies underneath. Our emotions are just indicators, right? They're an indicator on a car dashboard going, oh, there's a warning,
Yeah.
there's something going on here. So I think, having those opportunities to just sit with people and get a bit curious is ask some questions. It's good.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So jump over to thewholeofus.com. Otherwise, like, subscribe, share,
Subscribe.
leave a comment, because we'd love to hear what you guys have got to say. We'll talk soon.
Bye.
Bye.